Welcome to Blog Talk Radio in high fidelity. People tell me every day love is gonna come my way, searching for clues that I hope to find. Want something that's gonna last. I wanna live and forget the past. I know this change is gonna do me good. I know this change is gonna do me good. Even though it hurts me now, I know this change will do me good. Wonder where the wind will blow. If you got a clue, then let me know. Don't hold back now. Give me a sign. Point to something really good. Like take a dream, you know you should. I know this change is gonna do me good. I know this change is gonna do me good. Even though it hurts me now, I know this change will do me everything changes in its own way. I'm feeling better every day. I wanna look back and all of this someday. I'm gonna even though it hurts me I know the things will do me good. Even though it hurts me I know this change will do me good.
Aloha. Good evening. This is Andrew Aloha live out of Flagstaff, Arizona, with Spiritual Image Productions on Blog Talk Radio and FreeConferencing.com and Ustream, establishing and maintaining right relationships through human values. Aloha and welcome to Andrew Aloha live tonight. Tonight we're talking with Nancy Kress, all the way out of, now you live in Phoenix area? Where do you live at, Nancy?
Gold Canyon, which is at the base of the Superstition Mountains, a little bit southeast of Apache Junction.
And so anyhow, it's here in Arizona, and tonight we're talking about, tonight's subject is it dyslexia? And I think it's actually a good subject to talk about because a lot of people have dyslexia. They don't even realize it, a lot of them, but but they do. So anyhow, just to let you know, Nancy saw her youngest son go from non-reader to reader. She used the Romalda Spalding Phonics plan in the Writing Road to Reading. Then she used the Christ Centered curriculum. Then she used the Phonics Game, and then she used Teach Your Child to Read in 200 easy lessons. And then she also used Reading Reflex, constantly searching for the key to making this dream come true of helping her son read. None of these programs made him successful as a reader. Eventually, an Arizona Republic article on dyslexia allowed her to see that her son might have dyslexia. When she researched for dyslexia on the internet, the Davis Dyslexia Correction site came up. She then became a Davis Dyslexia Correction facilitator and taught her son the tools from the program. a whole new, a whole new world of confidence and reading opened up to him. Another of her dreams came true. Then she decided to help other dyslexics learn to correct their dyslexia so that they can see their dreams come true as well. If you want more information on Nancy and dyslexia, you can go to www.dyslexiacorrector.com. And we're going to come back and talk to Nancy more about dyslexia and the correction process, and then go from there. In the meantime, and of course, my sinuses are acting up as well. It was actually a nice day, but it was overcast and all kinds of stuff going on. So my sinuses get to deal with all that today. Anyhow, I do want to give a big aloha to all of our underwriters that help make this whole show happen from week to week, month to month, year to year. Beginning with Maha Dikini Lore at www.mahadikini.com. Maha Dikini Lore's life has been a personal journey exploring sexuality and spirituality for over 20 years. She's a certified tantric counselor and a tantric teacher and a certified mind and sound teacher. Maha Dikini Lore is also a graduate of Margot Non's year-long sky dancing facilitator training program, as well as a current member of the American Association of Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists Club, and a charter member of the Association of Sexual Energy Professionals. She regularly attends teachings and trainings and conferences to keep current on the latest research and information on sexual education. And then we have the 90dayascensionjourney.com, the 90-day Ascension Journey at www.90dayascensionjourney.com. When you sign up for the 90-day Ascension Journey, you will be facilitated with defining and redefining your soul true life purpose. You will be assisted with finding out what Ascension means to you. On this journey, you will be provided with tools, techniques, and assistance to empower you to connect and reconnect with yourself and your emotions and feelings in your mind, body, and spirit. Through a universal soul-centered process, you will be going through a lifelong transformation that will allow you to move forward with your endeavors and never look back if you dare. And just to let you guys know, last year I wrote the book version of this to supplement this journey. It's a mentoring program that I've been doing for the last 2 or 3 years or so, and it came to me that I should write the book, so I did. And if you want to go to spiritualimageproduction.com or the 90dayascensionjourney.com, there's a gift, there's a picture of the book. You can click on that. That'll take you to a page that will give you an excerpt of the introduction in the first chapter. If you want to read that and more information, place where you can order it. You can order it on Amazon.com as well, and also Kindle. So it's like that. So anyhow, we also have the 2017 MUFON Symposium at www.mufonsymposium.com. The MUFON Symposium is the world's most respected meeting of the mind on the UFO phenomena. From a scientific point of view, there are no other events on Earth that come close to this. Come one, come all, and be immersed in the quest to unravel the mystery of the UFO. To be held at the J.W. Merritt in Las Vegas, Nevada, from the 21st through the 23rd of July of this year. And just to let you know, number one, if you happen to see me there, come up to me and give me a big high five, and at least let me know that you're there. Otherwise, the symposium this year the theme is a case study, a case study of the secret of space, or is there secret space? Anyhow, it's talking about the secret space program. So, unfortunately, the website isn't coming up. But anyhow, I'm going to be doing an interview series, I believe starting next week, if I remember right, the 21st and the 28th of May, and then also the 11th and 18th of June. I'll be interviewing I believe their keynote speaker is John Bradenberg, Dr. John Bradenberg, I believe. And then I'm also going to be interviewing Michael Schrott and Professor James Woodward out of University of California, Fullerton, I believe. And then let me see. Oh, Andy Passaggio, that's right. I'll be interviewing those 4 people. And if you want to figure out what days, which ones I'm interviewing each person, you can go to spiritualimageproduction.com, spiritualimageproduction.com. On the right-hand side, there's a place where you can sign up for the email list and keep abreast of everything that's going on for Spiritual Image Production. On the left-hand side, there's a link. Actually, I take it back. Yeah, there's a link. It says SIP's Divine Calendar. You can click on that and you can scroll down and to May and June, and that'll let you know when I'll be interviewing each one of those people. And, I want to thank you for being here, Nancy, sharing your time with us, and just taking the time to talk with us about dyslexia. And so, first of all, if you can just kind of give us an overview of who Nancy is, where you grew up at, and how you got involved, with dyslexia and so forth. So wherever you want to start, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I grew up in the west end of Phoenix, which is called
Okay, Nancy, time out.
Yes.
I don't know why we can't hear you very loud, but we're going to have you speak louder.
Okay, is this any better?
I'm not sure, but go ahead. Just go ahead.
I'm not hearing. Okay. I grew up on the west side of Phoenix in Maryville. I went to Andalusia Grade School, Alhambra High School. I became a journalist. I wrote for the Arizona Republic and went to University of Arizona to get my journalism degree. And then I married a young man who was in ROTC with the Air Force, and I married him. And we went to Williams Air Force Base, which is now the Mesa Gateway Airport. And he got pilot training, and we ended up in northern Maine, where I saw my first snowfall. And it was 29.5 inches of snow.
Wow.
And that was plenty for us. So when he got out as soon as possible from the Air Force, we moved back to Tucson, and then we moved to Phoenix in 1982 and have lived in the Phoenix area until 5 years ago when we moved out to Gold Canyon because he's working up in the mines. So that's a little background. I have 3 children. A 37-year-old daughter who has provided us with a 12-year-old granddaughter.
Wow.
A 30-year-old son and a 27-year-old son.
And so now your husband's your husband's retired. Is that what I hear you saying?
My husband was a pilot, and now he works as an electrical engineer up in the mines for Freeport-McMoran.
Got it. So you and I met several months ago at a World Ventures gathering or event, I should say.
Yeah.
And that we were both involved in World Ventures, which I'm no longer part of anymore. And I believe you told me you are still. But anyhow, and we talked a little bit about dyslexia. I think I even may have dyslexia. I've never been diagnosed with it, but I think here and there I'll have some bouts with that. And then I think my dad had it. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of people have it. Like I said, a lot of people may not even realize it. So you had your first son. Is that the one that had dyslexia?
Well, actually, it turned out that he did think in dyslexic manner in 3D pictures, but it was my youngest son who really just couldn't get the reading thing down.
Got it.
But both of my sons think like dyslexic.
Got it. So if you can define for us what dyslexia is, let's start with that.
Okay. The meaning of the word dyslexia means problem with words, and mostly it's with the written word. So when there is any confusion about a word, the dyslexic mind will see it like 3D instead of flat ink on paper. Okay? So when there is confusion, The dyslexic mind will take its like mind's eye or the little camera in the eye and try and look at the word from the other side in its imagination. So it isn't actually seeing the word backward at first, but when there's confusion, it tries looking at the word from the other side to see if that makes any more sense. I often describe that to parents as like if you were looking at a can of soda pop and you knew it was a soda can and it looked kind of reddish, but you couldn't see the name of it, you'd start taking clues. Is it a dark red or a bright red? Do I see a swish on it? Is there anything that gives me more of a clue what kind of a can it is? And you might say, oh, well, I see that it doesn't have a swish, so it must be Dr. Pepper. But in fact, it could be like Safeway brand black cherry. And this is kind of what happens to dyslexic people when they come to a word that they don't know what it is. Then they start imagining what the other side of it looks like, kind of like the person imagines, well, there must be a D-R-P-E-P-P-E-R on it somewhere, so that's what it is. So often that point of confusion becomes more confusing as they try to read further.
Got it.
So then that confusion can lead to more and more confusion. And pretty soon they're looking at words on the page, and my son said sometimes it just looked like ants on the page. Words were all moving around, and he couldn't get them to stay still enough to see what he was actually looking at.
Got it. So, because I always had the notion that dyslexia had to do with somebody that their mind is processing at 100 miles an hour, but they're actually reading at 5 miles an hour, and that's what confuses them. That's what I understood.
And when I experience that with students, they often start imagining what's coming instead of reading the real words that are there. And so that would be the experience, is that I'm reading faster than I'm seeing and processing the words.
Got it.
But in fact, what happens is they stop reading and they start writing a story in their mind.
Exactly.
And that's what the program I use is the Davis Dyslexia Association International program. And Ron Davis, the man who discovered this way of thinking is what causes dyslexia, says that dyslexics will come up with a solution and then try to apply it every time. For instance, they'll come up to a word that starts with a capital J, and it'll say January. And so they'll guess January, and that's correct. So then every time they come to a capital J again, they may think it's January, and it could be John or Jim or Jack. And so all of a sudden their old solution doesn't work anymore.
Got it.
And with that confusion, they might just go ahead and make their own story up about John or Jack or Jim. And because they're so creative, they're think outside the box people, they will create a story that's much more interesting than what they're reading. And in fact, my older son, who we did not diagnose with dyslexia because he was capable of reading, would often read a whole story out loud. It sounded like he was reading, but when he came to the question, he didn't know the answers at all because he was saying the words on the page, but in his mind, he was picturing something completely different. And so his experience of reading had nothing to do with what was on the page.
Huh.
That can happen.
So are people that are dyslexia, are they high energy people? Are they people that can't sit still? Are they people that just are just going 100 miles an hour in their mind with everything that's going on?
Not always, but they are people who process a lot of information quickly. We like to call it, they talk about people who think normally. Okay, 5 out of 6 people think normally, and 1 out of 6 people thinks like a dyslexic. Dyslexic people tend to process by their experiences and by visual. So when a dyslexic person walks into a room, that person takes in everything, and they see the whole world at one time. A linear thinker, which is 5 out of 6, sees just what they're looking at and processes that little bit. And so when a dyslexic person is ready to deal with a problem, that dyslexic person kind of sees the world like a spider web. And if you pull on this little corner down in the right, the whole spider web moves, and they can imagine what results. Whereas a linear thinker is more like when you have a line of dominoes, and you turn one, and it has to hit the next one, and the next one, the next one, and the next one. And then they get to the end of those dominoes, and that isn't the solution they were looking for. So then they have to start with a different line of thought, a different set of dominoes to get down to that end. And so a dyslexic thinker processes information faster than a normal thinker, as they call it. Does that make sense?
Yep, I hear you. Now, let me ask you this. Do you know what an indigo child or indigo person is?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes.
Okay.
But you should probably go ahead and describe it for your audience.
Okay, well, I was going to say, why don't you give us your definition of what you believe an indigo child or indigo person is?
An indigo person is intuitive and notices more things. Sometimes they're Asperger's or autism children because they seem to have elevated hearing and visual. For instance, when they see someone's hair, they see a lot of strands. They don't see a head with like a furry thing on it. They see each motion of each individual follicle of hair. When they look at a puddle on the ground, they see the rainbow of the oil on it instead of just seeing water just kind of shining back. They experience the world differently. And sometimes dyslexic people will be indigo children, but not necessarily. It's not a if-and situation.
I believe that a lot of times that an indigo person is also dyslexic. And the reason being is because number one, and you can go to Dolores Cannon and find her work and read about this about this. She states that there's at least three generations of indigo people that have been coming through for several years since the 40s or 50s. There was the first wave, and then after that, I believe around the 70s, 80s, there was a second wave, and then the third wave is finishing up as we speak. And I don't know when that will finish, but when that will be, there will be the last one. But indigo beings are determined to be highly evolved. Typically, they come from other worlds where the systems that they lived in then were highly evolved. They were used to doing things a lot faster, a lot flying in spaceships. Who knows all the things that they did or do. But they come from other worlds where they're used to their lifestyles are much more advanced than what humans are used to on this planet right now, literally. And so they're also used to much more information coming through. Everything's coming through faster, and I believe that things are even easier for them because of that as well. And so when they come here into this world, I believe a lot of them will commit suicide because they don't know what to do with themselves. They can't deal with it because everything's so mundane and so slow and so boring or whatever that it's hard for them to really connect with this civilization here on this planet. And so again, their minds are used to processing a lot faster. It's like a computer. You have older computers which process really slow. You know, they have 54K RAM, 128K RAM. But now the new systems, literally it's just like that. The new computers have what I don't know, a gigabyte K RAM now, 2 gigabytes K RAM, 3 gigabytes K RAM. The processing systems are so much faster that they can just eat up the information like no tomorrow and mow through it like no tomorrow and process it through it and it works. So it's like that. So I believe that a dyslexic person it operates in the same way, and I believe that's why, is because they're so advanced in their thinking process, that it's hard for them to slow down to a level that allows them just to read and read for content, not just for to hear themselves read. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, well, I can understand what you're saying, but in general, all of the clients I've worked with have had human parents. They have not had parents from other worlds. And so I'm not sure if dyslexia is tied to that. I'm not saying that that doesn't exist, but I have had clients that actually have the same symptoms as dyslexia. I mean, as the indigo children that are a higher level of processing sensory information and brain waves and that kind of thing. So I can't really say that my dyslexic students are from other dimensions or other times or other planets, as you're saying.
Of course.
Because they come in with two American parents from whom they've been born.
Well, if you read the Dolores Cannon works, her books, a lot of her information came from hypnosis. She hypnotized a number of people, and eventually, literally, ETs or aliens would talk to her through these hypnotic sessions, hypnotist sessions, through these people, through these beings, and pretty soon she was talking directly to them. And a lot of that information comes through her from that. What I want to do right now, Nancy, I'm going to open up this line anyhow, even though I don't take questions for usually the second half. But we're going to go ahead and open up the phone line right now. The area code 323. What the heck happened? Well, anyhow, there was somebody.
I'm here.
Well, there was somebody there, and then all of a sudden they hung up. So I was gonna. They had their hand up to ask a question, and then they hung up. But anyhow, that's okay. So anyhow, that's my understanding. And again, I don't know if you've ever heard of Dolores Cannon or read any of her works, but you might want to check out some of her information sometime when you get a chance. So
okay.
So go ahead. So we've defined dyslexia again as being a process of a thinking process. Is that what we're saying? It's a way of thinking. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Most people are right-handed and they process most information on the left side of their brain. So when they read, if you're doing an MRI, the back left will be where what lights up. But dyslexic people, when they read, there's several different sections in their brains that light up in an MRI, and often very exact to if they were singing. And so it just proves that they're mentally wired differently than your typical reader.
Got it.
And also, most people are right dominant. They don't throw with their right hand, they kick with their right foot, they write and eat with their right hand, and if they look at anything, their right eye will be the dominant eye. Whereas dyslexic people have cross dominance and mixed dominance and all sorts of things, and sometimes they're ambidextrous.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
Yeah. And because of that, because they're thinking different, they process the information differently also. And what Ron Davis says is that they tend to think in pictures or three-dimensional thoughts rather than words and concepts. And so when you need to teach a dyslexic person something new, you need to tie it to something they already know. And so analogy is an excellent way to teach them. Put an analogy with something they've already experienced or seen or know, and then they can tie it down to that experience or that vision and be able to adjust their new information to that.
Got it. So I'll tell you what I want to do is I want to go back and talk about your son and the process that you went through with him, helping him read, and then I want to talk about was it Davis? Is that what you said? the correction.
Yes,
Correction.
Davis Dyslexia.
Yeah, I want to talk about him and his process, his technique, and then go from there. But before we do that, I think we're just going to go ahead and take a break anyhow. I want to play Om Namah Shivaya by Daniel Paul from his album called Elephant Prayers. And I want to send out love, blessings, healing, angels of light, and love to all those indigo people out there, all those indigo kids, all the crystal kids, to all the people with dyslexia, of course, I think the President of the United States has dyslexia. That's what I think. But that's his last point. Anyhow, to the President of the United States and all his people, he needs all the help he can get. To all the kids and the animals and the plants on the planet, especially the ones in need and concern. Of course, to Nancy, to you and your family and friends, and me and my family and friends, and to all our vehicles and places of residence that help take care of us. Anybody you want to add to that, Nancy?
Wow. Our military and our police and our firemen especially.
Okay. Good. To all the emergency people, EMTs and all the people that do emergencies operations. All right. To them.
Yes.
To everyone else in need and concern. We will be back again. Om Namah Shivaya by Daniel Paul from his album Elephant Prayers. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of that album. Otherwise, I'd show you. But anyhow, we will be back. I almost forgot. I also want to send this love, blessings, healings, angels, light, and love to all the moms up there, and especially to my mom, my mother, who I think is also dyslexic. I don't think she knows that, but anyhow, to her as well.
Om Namah Shivaya. 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 Om Namah
we're back. This is Andrew Aloha live out of Flagstaff, Arizona with Spiritual English Productions on Blog Talk Radio and freeconferencing.com and Ustream, establishing and maintaining right relationships through human values. Again, tonight we're doing Andrew Aloha live. We're talking with Nancy Kress out of Arizona, and we're talking about dyslexia. Is it dyslexia? And so, she, now you grew up in Arizona, and then you met up with a Air Force pilot, and then you relocated to Maine, and then you came back to Arizona. Now, is that when you became when you started discovering dyslexia? Is that what I hear you saying, Nancy?
Actually, no. It wasn't until my youngest son. I helped start the Alhambra Traditional School, which used the Spalding Phonics method of reading. And that particular method is chosen because the Reading Foundation said that it eliminated dyslexia. And so what it really did was it masked it. I had no reason to believe my son was dyslexic. And yet he could write a story today and not read that same story tomorrow, which was a totally mystery to me. How could that, you could write a story and not read your own story? And for instance, just to kind of give you an idea how that works, he would say, yesterday we went to Kress Electronics and bought a radio-controlled car. That might be the way his story starts. And so the first word in that is yesterday. Okay, today I hand him his story, and I say, read me the story you wrote yesterday. And he would start with, at Kress Electronics, and I go, no, read what you wrote. Look at me all frustrated, and he'd say, I know what I wrote. But I said, okay, you just said the word at. At is spelled A-T. Now, if you look on that page, the first word is Y-E-S-T-E-R-D-A-Y. And he'd throw the paper down and be very frustrated with me. And I couldn't understand what the deal was. And the deal was that he could create, as he was writing it out of his own head, he could create it on the paper. And because of his Spalding phonics, which taught him perfect penmanship, every letter had a perfectly round circle for his A's and his C's and his B's and his C's. He could write beautifully, but when he went to see it, like I said, he said that the letters would all run together. He couldn't tell where one word ended and the next word start. He'd see the words all, the letters moving around like ants on the page. And so a lot of times when young readers say that they're getting a stomachache or their head hurts when they're reading, that's what they're dealing with. They can't get those letters to stay still because they're just symbols that don't mean anything to them.
Wow. That definitely sounds like me because I didn't really start reading until I got out of high school. And I started to learn how to speed read. And when I started to learn how to speed read, that's when things became easier for me to comprehend and work with. That's what it feels like to me.
Great.
So anyhow,
well, another thing that people who are problem readers or parents of problem readers are dealing with is teachers do not understand this. That children who have dyslexia take a word like C-A-T, cat, and they see that word as a single picture that they do not see three letters generally. They see C-A-T as one single picture, and they know that it means what they picture is a kitten or a cat, the C-A-T. And so I've dealt with reading teachers who will say, well, he sees the word P-O-N-Y and reads it as horse. Why does he do that? Well, because H-O-R-S-E has a picture that's the same to their mind as P-O-N-Y, because both of them are four-legged animals with a mane and a big tail that run around and people can ride. Okay? So, readers who have problems have these lists of words that they call the dolts list or the small words for problem readers. And what Ron Davis discovered is those words are words for which they have no picture. So you'll have a child who can read big, long words like armament or Ferris wheel or something, but they can't read and. Every time they come to the word and, or every time they come to the word the, it's like a whole new discovery to them. And the reason is they don't have a picture for what an and should look like or for what a the should look like.
Exactly.
So if you kind of process that, it makes sense that there's all these little words, and, the, of, with, beyond, all these words that are difficult to picture, and yet they can picture armchair, rocking chair, television. I mean, they can spell and write television and know what it is when they come to it, but they can't spell the. They don't know what the is. And it's like a new discovery every time they come to the word.
Exactly. You just clued me in on another reason that people could be dyslexic is and I just came across this a few days ago. I can't remember what her name was, but she's out of South Africa, I believe, and she's a animal communicator. And
oh wow!
Yeah, the story was that there was a panther that was taken to a wildlife zoo or not a zoo but a recovery sanctuary, a recovery sanctuary for animals, and they had lions and tigers there, and they had just relocated this panther to this place, and the panther was having a hard time. It would stay in his cage and it would growl. Everybody that came by, anything that came by, it would growl at it, and it was like angry. And so they brought in this animal communicator. I wish I could remember her name. Excuse me, I'm trying to bring it up now, but my computer is one of those 128 RAM kilobyte systems, you know, right? The slower one. So anyhow, so they brought in this animal communicator. I believe she's out of South Africa, and this I believe this. I'm not sure if this place was in Africa or England, but the one of the guys the caretaker there, he used to be a cop, and he retired, or he just got out of the business and got into this business instead. So anyhow, he was a real skeptic. It was funny because he was a real skeptic. He goes, I don't believe in this stuff, blah, blah, blah. You know, I've never seen anything like this. I've never heard of anything, blah, blah, blah. He was like, no way, this is bull. So it was like that. So anyhow, she went and talked to this panther, and come to find out it was angry because it had been moved, and it didn't trust the caretakers. He didn't he didn't know. Let me see if I can find it. But anyhow, he was concerned because he was worried that the caretakers were going to make him do all kinds of stuff just to eat and all this other stuff, and so then the caretakers came back and told her, well, no, he can do whatever he wants. Whatever he wants to do, it's up to him. So then he was relieved because of that, and then the panther was also worried because there was another panther or another cub or one or two other cubs somewhere else where it had come from, and he was worried about their well-being. He was worried about whether or not they were okay or not, and the caretakers go, wow, they could not believe it because they didn't know there's no way that this animal communicator could have known about that cub or cubs, right? There's no way in the world she could have known about them, and they were just blown away. And they go, no, the cubs are okay, they're fine, they're doing fine. And so the panther again was even more relieved because of that. And then the caretaker, the cop, the ex-cop, went and talked to it and said, hey, I apologize. I know you may not understand me, or I don't know if you understand me, and I apologize. if I hurt your feelings, blah blah blah. I hope you're okay, and just talk to it like a person. And
Uh-huh.
and for the first time, that panther actually went outside the cage and went explored around in 6 months after that. And the reason I'm telling you this story, Nancy, is because that animal communicator talked to this panther in pictures, not in words. And the telepathy that was going on between them was in the form of pictures. And so and it would make sense that when people from advanced civilizations communicate with each other via telepathy, they do so in form of pictures, not little words. And little words like the and don't come into the picture at all, right? And a pony and a horse may be the exact same picture in the communication process. So to me, that would make a lot of sense in terms of why these people would be dyslexic, because they're used to communicating with each other. And that's right. The people in advanced civilizations are used to communicating with each other via telepathy. They don't talk with each other in words most of the time. It's all the communication process is done through telepathy, and so that's what they're used to. And so they come down to this world, or I'm not saying down, they come to this world, and they're used to communicating with other people via telepathy, and they can't do it because most people, or a lot of people, don't know how to do that, and so so they have a hard time. They have to learn the mundane 3D world of humanity that's going on here, the lifestyle here, and so they have to learn how to read and write in the way that the humanity does so, because that's where they're at. And but it's like that, and so that would make a lot of sense in terms of why they would be dyslexic to begin with. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So anyhow,
Something else, though,
what's that?
is that, like, you asked about my son's reading, and one of the reading programs that we had, I don't remember which one, dealt a lot with rhyming words. And I would say rhyming words to my son and say them, and I'd say, what's the same about this? And the one I remember that I laughed at out loud, I said, rice, mice, nine, which is R-I-C-E, M-I-C-E, and N as in Nancy, I-C-E.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, what do those have in common? And he said, kitchen. And I just started laughing. I go, how can you say kitchen? And he says, well, like the three blind mice must have been in the kitchen because the farmer's wife was running after her. And that's the three mice, and the kitchen is a nice place to be, and there's rice in the kitchen. And I'm like, okay, read, he doesn't even hear the sounds. And that's a common thing with dyslexics also, is they don't even hear the sounds. You say rice, they see rice. You say rice, they see something that's time. And so the whole thing about the written word and the spoken word as symbols for something else is kind of lost in, as soon as the word exists, it has a meaning that they have a picture too. So that's just more of what you're talking about there.
Exactly. And even the kids that are in the entertainment business these days, they do rap, a lot of rap. A lot of the kids are involved with rap, and to us, that's not music. That's just talking head stuff. But that's where they're at, because again, their information process is so much more and vast and faster than ours is, and that's the way that they are able to do music on their level. That's where they're at. So that would make a lot of sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's interesting that your son would put together a whole picture out of 3 words that rhyme with each other, and instead of connecting instead of connecting the melody, they're connecting the whole picture, the whole gamut of it all.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So that so anyhow, so dyslexia. So you start now. How old is your son when you first started trying to help him read?
4 years old.
Okay, so and you were just doing that because you wanted to help him get ahead of the game more so than usual. Is that correct?
Actually, his older brother was kind of a terror in the kindergarten classroom.
I can't hear you again.
And
Somehow the miking thing needs to be fixed. So go ahead.
Okay, I'm trying to find the mic here. His older brother was kind of a terror in the kindergarten class, so we brought him home to homeschool him.
Oh.
So the younger brother was 4 years old, and so we just kind of put him in the group of schooling together there. And so he learned his phonics from the Spalding reading, and he learned how to say all the different sounds that each phonogram makes. He learned how to do his handwriting correctly, and it was only when you transferred it from the writing way, because Spalding Phonics teaches you the writing way. It's called the writing road to reading. And the idea is you learned all the shapes of the letters and all the sounds you make. You write your own stories because, like, English students speak English, Japanese students speak Japanese, Spanish students speak Spanish before they ever show up at school. So they already know how to express themselves. So
in their own language, in the primary language.
Exactly. If you teach them the tools to write in their language and make their own story, then they will therefore flip it and realize, okay, I can read the language someone else has written if it's my same language written with the same figures. So once they learn to print, they can read printing of their own language. And that's the theory behind the Spalding Writing Road to Reading. And it's an amazing way for, 75% of the kids to learn to read, or 87% of the kids to learn to read. Dyslexic student, it just masks the fact that they aren't really capable of reading. They know how to do beautiful handwriting, which is also often a problem for a dyslexic, because if a child goes to school and learns Spalding alphabet formation, which is perfect circles with straight lines next to it, picture an A with a round circle, and a straight line to the right of it that makes it an A. And then in second grade, that same student goes to a school that they're teaching Danielian handwriting, which Danielian was designed to teach a child to move from your printed into your cursive very easily. And so instead of being a round circle, their A is kind of a tilted teardrop with a little hook on it, so that it's ready to go into the next letter. But for a picture thinker, those do not look alike at all. And I will show parents a green square and a red square. And I'll say, are these the same? And they look at it and they don't know. They're both squares, but they're not the same. I said, that's the problem. A non-dyslexic will see them as the same, like they're both squares. But a dyslexic will say, obviously those aren't the same. So when a dyslexic is shown one way of handwriting and then another way of a handwriting, or they're taught one way and then their teacher writes a note in a different handwriting, then they eventually get the idea that it doesn't matter how I shape my letters. And that's when you get to dysgraphia, where their handwriting is impossible for even themselves to read, because they don't really identify one particular way to create any one letter. And that's a common problem in dyslexia also.
Got it. So let me ask you this, Nancy.
Yes.
Is your son, or either of them, or both of them, psychic? Do you know? Have they had paranormal experiences?
Not to my knowledge. Both of them are very creative. Both of them are very visual. One of them writes music and is a photographer and an artist, and the other one, the dyslexic, is the one who writes screenplays and articles and creates things in handwriting.
I think you might be surprised at how psychic these guys are. I have a feeling I have because again most of the indigo kids and people out there are usually pretty psychic, and they usually have had some kind of paranormal experience or another at some point or another. I'm sure of it. And so, and they're very hyper. They're very sensitive. They're they have a hard time sitting still. And I think dyslexia is one of the dysfunctions of indigo people because of having to communicate, in a different, completely maybe completely different way than they're used to in other lifetimes from being in an advanced civilization. So I think that's part of the process. So anyhow, I think even if they don't know that they're psychic, I think they can learn how to communicate via telepathy really relatively easy if they set their mind to it and they work with it. I think they absolutely could. So anyhow,
Possibly.
I'm wondering. Let me see. What was I going to say? Anyhow, so what else can you tell us about? I was reading an article. I thought, and maybe you were the one. I think there were some people, some famous people out there that are dyslexic that have come out publicly.
Yeah, Leonardo da Vinci. You know they have different drawings by Leonardo da Vinci, and his notes are written in mirror writing. And for the longest time, before they understood what dyslexia is, they thought he was writing so that normal people couldn't take his notes. But they later discovered that he probably was a dyslexic thinker, and because he was in creative mode instead of what we call oriented mode, he was just writing, seeing it from the other side of the paper as he was writing. That would be Leonardo da Vinci. If you can read Italian and look at like the drawing of his helicopter type thing, all of it is mirror writing, and that would have been due to his dyslexia. Michelangelo, there's a story that he was in a stone quarry looking for a piece of stone, and this man saying, well, the stone seller saying, well, this is a beautiful piece of stone, and he says it's not in there. And he goes, well, how about this one? And he says, it's not in there. And finally the stone seller says, what's not in there? He says, well, I already see what I'm going to make. And all I have to do is take away the stone that doesn't belong, and it's not in that piece of stone. And that's somebody who thinks in three dimensions. Thomas Edison, he could, like precognitive, he could see what he needed to have as an end result. He just had to go through all the different ways to get it there. And his, I can't think of the name of his laboratory. His laboratory was very three-dimensional in the way it was set up. Alexander Graham Bell, Winston Churchill was known as a flunky in school. He was a great leader during World War II because he was a visionary. He could see a lot of different solutions to one problem. Albert Einstein, who was sent home from school with a note that said, Albert can't think, don't send him back to school. And Walt Disney, who saw things before he created them, he saw them as a finished work, and then he'd start working with his creators to say, how can we make this happen?
Yep.
Henry Ford, Jay Leno, Tom Cruise, John Lennon, Orlando Bloom, George Patton, Charles Schwab, Richard Branson. I don't know, most people don't know that Richard Branson quit high school.
Wow.
And his parents went in and talked to his principal and said, we're very worried about Richard, that he's not going to go to college. And the principal says, you don't need to worry about Richard. He already sees where he's going, and he's going to make it happen. So a lot of the people who are dyslexic are visionaries because they see their finished product before they get started.
Yep, I hear you.
And I haven't named any women, but Cher, from Sonny and Cher, Keira Knightley, Kate Winslet, the author of, I can't think, different author ladies, because it's only in our generation that women have really been famous. for creating in that we don't have a lot of historical women who we know were dyslexic, but we're seeing it come forth now more and more.
Yeah, no kidding, exactly. Yeah, I found the woman that I was telling you about. That's also this. I think she's dyslexic as well. Her name is Anna. Hang on a second. Her name is Anna Breitenbach. Breytenbach. And she's an animal communicator. And I have a feeling. I can almost bet you 100% that she's dyslexic as well. I'll almost bet you. And that's a good point. So you're saying that typically visionaries are also dyslexic as well. That's an interesting
yes, because of the picture
connection.
thinking aspect.
Exactly.
They think in pictures and three-dimensional. So if they're in their imagination, they can imagine it. They can already see it.
No kidding. So it would be interesting to find out if this other woman, and again, she's out of South Africa. Her website is animalspirit.org if you ever want to check her out. But I have a feeling that she probably is. So I'm wondering if not if some or most or all psychics or psychic mediums are also dyslexic. I'm wondering if that's the case as well.
It's entirely possible because they do see things and they don't read those things. They are visionaries. They are seeing them in their mind.
Exactly. Wow, that's an interesting connection that I hadn't made before. So what else? We got about 22 minutes. What else do you want to? Well, I tell you what. Let's go back. So your son, one of your sons, who's probably also an indigo kid, I'm sure of it. He can't sit still. He's getting into trouble. So you say, let's homeschool him. And then why don't we just homeschool both of them since we're at it? And so you start doing that, and then you work with all these systems that don't seem to be successful in helping your youngest son read. So what happens after that? You're reading the Arizona Republic, and then you read this article about dyslexia. How did that make you feel?
Oh, it was very enlightening because the son who actually was my key to getting into dyslexia correction made everything in Legos or Brio-Mac or erector sets or even cardboard and tape and scissors, And so I read this article that said that people who are dyslexic make great architects or dancers or sports people. They tend to think in three dimensions. And I thought of all the different things my son had made. And once he saw Apollo 13, the movie, he created 3 different moonshots with the tower next to it. Those replicas of that in 3 different media. One time he asked me for a cardboard board so he could make a Titanic. He wanted a poster board. And I thought he was going to draw a Titanic. And I was amazed about 40 minutes later, he had cut it out and taped it together and was a 3-dimensional, like 2-foot long cardboard ship.
Wow.
And so as I'm reading this article, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, is it possible? Because he didn't flip letters. Because the Spalding Phonics had taught him the correct way that letters should go.
Huh.
And when I went to ArizonaDyslexia.com, no, I went to the phone number, which was the Arizona Dyslexia Association. I got an answering machine, so I left a message. And then it was before there was Google, but I went on Yahoo, or whatever it was called at the time, and did a search and found Ron Davis's website. And it's just dyslexia.com, and I started reading about it, and he explained that dyslexia is a gift. It's an ability to see things and imagine things and create things much more completely than other people, but it creates a problem when you start dealing with the written word. And if you can solve for those problems, those bumps in the road, so to speak, then you can deal with the typical thinkers and communicate and do your reading, and you don't want to lose that gifting of thinking three-dimensionally and in pictures and creatively. And fortunately, I had read that article and gotten in touch with the Davis Dyslexia Foundation before I got the call back from the people who said, oh, dyslexia is a horrible learning disability. It's horrible. You know, the kids are never going to go to college and on and on. And so I already had this idea that, okay, this is just a different way of thinking.
Exactly.
And the way that Ron Davis works with it is the first thing we do is create what we call orientation, where you are sure that what you are doing on the page is what's actually there. Because, like I said, the Coke can, as soon as there's a bit of confusion, the dyslexic mind will try to go around it and see if there's some way to take away that confusion. But what you want is to make sure that your mind is receiving the truth and then go from there. So you see the word THE and you don't have a picture for it, so then you start trying to see something else. What does CEH mean? Does EHT mean something? Does ETH mean something? How about from the other side? Oh, let's see. And in doing that, you're actually creating more confusion. So if you can make sure that your brain is receiving what your eyes are actually participating in, then you can deal with, okay, it is THE, what does that mean? And what our program does is it moves to plastilina clay, which is a kind of clay that does not ever get hard, and yet it maintains its shape. It's what they use when they make, like, Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and those kind of things for movies. And it'll take paint and all that if you want. So we use that, and we discuss the actual meaning of whatever word is a problem, and then we build a model. For instance, the word on means supported by. And so a child might draw a picture of them standing on a step stool. Or I mean, not draw a picture, create a model, a clay model of a child on a step stool. It's supported by the step stool. Or might create a clay model of something on their head, a hat on their head, because it's supported by. And then they put the word in clay, O-N, in front of it, and kind of take a mental picture of it. And then, amazingly, every time they come to O-N, then that little picture takes away the confusion, and they can read knowing what that meant.
Got it.
Those are our first two steps. One of the steps I left out between there is we do build the alphabet in clay and make sure that no letter is a confusion or has an emotional tie to it. And so we go through and make sure that there's no what we call disorientation attached to any one of the letters. And so we built the alphabet in clay. And there's a few other things we do, but the final one is what we call picture punctuation, where you read a sentence and you picture what that sentence would describe, and then having pictured it, that stays in your mind.
Got it.
It has some little detriments to that, because you can read the man bought a car and picture, you know, a guy with a Porsche, and then the next sentence could be, he wanted his daughter to drive his grandchildren over to his house. Well, a guy with a Porsche giving that to his to his daughter, she's not going to be able to fit herself and 6 grandchildren. So you're going to have to change the car that was purchased in order to process the story. And that was where my older son had difficulty in his reading, is he'd read The Man Bought the Porsche, and his story would go on in his head about the guy driving the Porsche, and he goes by and visits his kids, his kid and his grandkids, instead of the next sentence was she brought them to him. And so with that confusion, he'd continue reading the whole story, and then at the end he couldn't answer the questions because the story he created in his mind was not tied to what was actually written there.
Oh, wow.
And that's very common for people who have dyslexia. Is they will read a story and they will have seen every word, but they won't process the picture to match the story they were reading.
Got it. Wow.
Have you ever had that happen?
Oh, yeah. Believe you me.
Yeah.
I had a hard time with reading and English growing up in high school, and then things got better. 'Cause one of the things that happened was I was able to type. I was the computer came around. I was able to use computers. First there was the little Apple computer, the little small box, and then there was the PCs. And I used to go to the business building at Texas Christian University and do all my essays and do all my work, written work on there, and I would do it on the computer on Microsoft Word and type. And so as I got to type more and more and see my writing more and more, I could understand better what I was talking about, what was going on, what the story is about, and sentence structure better. So it helped me to make the connections better on an overall level. And so once that started to happen, then I started to comprehend more of the work that I was working with and doing in school and whatever else. So that was a big, huge difference for me as well.
Wonderful.
So that I think that was a big help. So so you started becoming a facilitator, and at which point did you feel you were finally successful with your son's reading?
Oh, when he started reading, actually, he was into this computer game called Age of Empires. And the Age of Empires had all these different conquerors, like Montezuma and Genghis Khan and Richard III. And in order to play the game, you had to know all this different information about that historical time, their weaponry, their uniforms, the relationships of the people. And he sat and read 3 different books that were an inch thick in order to be good at those games. And he read that information for himself without anybody reading it to him. And good and won the game.
Wow. So he finally had some kind of incentive. And see, that's the other thing about dyslexic and indigo kids is that they're used to operating systems. They're used to flying in ships and spaceships and traveling across dimensions from one planet to the next or whatever. And everything's like a video game to them. So that's why they connect with the video games so well, and they like to work with them so well because they're used to operating that type of machinery in the real world where they come from, where they come from. So that and you give them I'm what I hear you saying is if they're given some kind of incentive to learn how to read even more, then that'll make a whole lot of difference as well.
Yes, and you brought up another facet that I find fascinating, that dyslexics can go into a video game and they can get the mapping very easily. They know when to turn right, when to turn left, when to turn around and all that. They envision it very well. And I discovered something about that. Dyslexics will move their mind's eye into a movie and experience the movie as if they were actually in it.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas people who are not dyslexic view the movie. They observe the movie. So people who are not dyslexic will watch a horror movie and they kind of find it entertaining. People who are dyslexic experience the horror movie and they can find it very disturbing.
Yeah. I mean, and I can't say again that I've been diagnosed with dyslexia, but a lot of times I tend to know exactly what's going to happen for several, during several parts of the movie as well. Some woman's going to slap a guy, or they're going to blow up a base, or what. I already know in advance, before it even happens that it's going to happen. A lot of times, a lot of this stuff. And so it's like that. I hear what you're saying. Absolutely.
And we're getting short on time. I do want to mention one other thing.
Go ahead.
And that's if you are dealing with someone who is dyslexic, do not say that they are lying or putting words in your mouth, because this is a common thing in marriage or in relationships. Because a dyslexic person has to think in pictures. And I have a very good friend whose daughter is a 3-dimensional thinker. And that friend was trying to lose weight, and her daughter called and said, I want to take you out for your birthday. Where can I take you out? And she says, well, we can go, but it has to be someplace that has salad. So the morning of her birthday, my friend's daughter calls and says, I'll pick you up at 11 to go to Sweet Tomato. Says, oh, we're going to Sweet Tomato? Mm-hmm. And the daughter said, that's where you said you wanted to go. And my friend got furious. And she says, why did she do that all the time? She says I said that. And I said, well, when you said it has to be someplace that has salad, she had to picture someplace that has salad. And Sweet Tomatoes has 21 feet of salad.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that happens very often. Very often with someone who thinks three-dimensionally, is they have to think in something real, not just someplace somewhere that has vegetables, you know?
That's funny.
So I work with a lot of adult clients, and I worked with a 49-year-old man, and we had to add 2 days to his program because he had been divorced twice, and as we're going through the program, he stopped and cried. He said, this makes so much sense. This explains this argument I had with this person. Right. This explains why my teacher threw me out of the class. You know, all these experiences he had because he thought so differently than what he was dealing with. And if you can understand that you tie it to something concrete instead of leaving it kind of just a concept, then you can understand where a lot of problems in communication happen.
So
I hear a laughter of recognition.
Yeah, exactly.
That has to be in your life.
I have never thought about that, but that's such a good point, Nancy. So what you're saying is that a lot of people with dyslexia will end up getting in arguments and have problems with communication because of this way of thinking, and not because they're trying to be jerks or being they're being buttholes or whatever. But that's just the way they think, and it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just the way they think, and then sometimes and you're right, because if these people are what I think I hear you saying, they're indigo kids and they're from other worlds, from other lifetimes. They're used to communicating. Again, we talked about this earlier. They're used to communicating via telepathy. They don't talk to each other with words, with vocally. They don't talk to each other at all. Very little communication process is vocal, or I'm assuming, and so that would make so much sense. Trying to talk to someone in words vocally, and say, hey, you want to go out and go to the movies tonight, and that's being interpreted as, hey, as some kind of a sexual harassment situation or something. I don't know. Who knows what all the situations can be? But it's like that, and then you might mean one thing, but people take it as something else, and not because you're necessarily incorrect with that communication process, but simply because of the way the communication is coming across to other people. So that's very interesting. I hadn't even thought about that. Wow.
Exactly.
That could, if everybody would just to learn how to communicate via telepathy, this would be so much easier. That's what I say. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I think. But anyhow, so we got about 6 minutes left, and so you were finally able to successfully help your son communicate or read, and then you say, oh, I want to. And so what happened? You just go, there's a lot of people. This is a niche that isn't being filled. Why don't I start working with other people as well? And how did all of that come about?
Oh, my mother said, look how you've changed his life. And I told my girlfriend whose husband was dyslexic what I had learned, and just explained a few of the things I had learned about it that helped my son and helped her husband so much. And my mother said, you've got to learn to do this. Look at these two lives are totally changed by just the information that you learned and shared with them. And so my mother paid for us to go. She went with me because I also didn't want to travel alone to San Francisco. I had to go 13 different times for 13 different seminars and training periods to become certified as a Davis Dyslexia facilitator. And my mom drove, we went in her vehicle, she paid for the gas and she paid for the hotel. And I went to all those trainings and finally became certified, and I've been doing it since 2001.
Wow, wow, amazing. So I'm proud of you. I'm very proud of you, Nancy, for taking up the bull by the horn and working with and dealing with, and then all of a sudden, because you did that, you had an amazing blessing coming through. So that's pretty awesome that you would do that and do that. So and so now, if people want to get a hold of you and want to work with you on that level, how do they do that? Where do they do that? What's the process?
As you said, dyslexiacorrector.com, www.d as in dog, y, s as in Sam, l, e, x as in x-ray, i, a, c as in cat, o, r, another r, e, c as in cat, t as in Tom, o, r, dyslexiacorrector.com, or my phone number is 480-544-5031. And I do best, really, I guess, fastest response if you call or text me at 480-544-5031.
And so, well, how do you begin with these people?
I can answer questions.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I can answer questions. I can give references, and I can do an assessment and tell if it really is dyslexia.
Got it. Got it.
Clients, however they'd like to go with that.
And so there's an assessment process. And so if it's determined that someone's got dyslexia, then how long can someone expect to work with that for it to be resolved to at least some kind of comfortable level for them or another?
Generally, I work with them for 5 days of 6 hours, and before I work with them, they agree to practice what I show them for 30 days after that, because we want to create new neural pathways that their thinking will follow when they're trying to read or spell or do handwriting. Nice. And so, really, people's lives are changed in a month and a week.
Wow, wow. That's pretty good. That's really fast, too. So,
yeah.
Nancy, do you feel like you were dyslexic or are dyslexic as well?
I think I might have been, only I was blessed to be taught to read in 3 different manners when I was in school, because I'm 64 years old, and I was in school when there was tracking, before they had No Child Left Behind, and put all the kids in one room, you know,
exactly.
all different levels in one room. And so they were tracking us, and the kids who didn't learn the first way were put in a group and taught the next way, and then were put in the group and taught the third way. And so when I didn't get it the first 2 ways, they did teach me a way.
90 seconds.
The teachers look and say.
Wow,
So,
wow.
but I definitely think 3-dimensionally.
Yeah, I hear you. So, and I want to thank you for your time, Nancy. I believe that this people and you're right. I believe that there's a lot of people out there that should listen to this show and at least get a grasp in terms of what they're up against, and because I believe there's a lot of people out there with dyslexia, and I think and when you said it yourself, it causes a problem with communication. There's a lot of arguments that these people have probably have gone through because of that, and so they really should maybe put some time into working with this so that they can help them on that level, if anything else, if worse comes to worse. So, again, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank all of you for stopping by.
Thank you.
Have a Goddess week. Be the love that you are, always have been, and always will be. Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.
Recording.
Goodbye.
Stop.